All right. So, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this workshop that we have tonight. It promises to be good. I'm particularly excited about it and what it really means for our community and the way forward. Um, Church of All Nations, we have been doing a couple of things this summer, and this is one of the workshop that we have come together and put our minds together and see how we can help the our community. So welcome to our back to school parent workshop. The title of it is Empowered Parents, Empowered Children. And tonight we're going to speak to you in three different sections. We do have Dr. Elizabeth Anderson. She is a psychologist. Um, for a number of years practicing in that field. She's going to be talking to us a lot about students with IEP and different areas like that. And I'm going to ask everyone to kind of save your questions to the end. I will be speaking to you. My name is Dr. Antoinette Mattis. I am a director of special education. I've been in special education and in education for over 20 years now. So I will bring my expertise to this conversation. And we have our third section that is going to take place tonight will be done by Lysandra McPherson, and she is a counselor with over a decade of experience tonight. So you are in for a treat, and I hope that you have your questions and just be ready to listen and be empowered. Okay, so the first speaker for tonight, we're gonna have Dr. Anderson. I'm gonna allow her to share her screen and see, and she will be coming on in.
All right, I'm now unmuted. Can everyone hear me and see the first slide?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
perfect.
Dr. Anderson, we are able to see you. We may have to proceed. It's a little bit blurry. We can see it, but somehow
Okay.
it is a little bit blurry. So and I know you shared before, and this
Yeah.
happened. So if you just want to push through, but I do want you to know it is a little bit blurry. Okay.
Okay, so I'll press through. If there's anything that's not clear, please type in the chat, but I think you'll be able to follow along with what I'm sharing tonight. So thank you for the introduction, Dr. Mattis. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Anderson, and
Good evening.
I echo what Dr. Mattis shared. We are very excited to have you joining us tonight. Before we get started with the first part of our workshop, we'd love to learn a little bit about everyone who's joining us tonight. So if you are comfortable, I'm going to ask you to type your responses in the Zoom chat. First, let us know what grade your child is in, or if your child is preschool age, you can let us know that too. For the purpose of tonight's presentation, we're going to be focusing specifically on what we call school age children. So that's referring to students in kindergarten to 12th grade. Second question that I want you to answer is, on a scale from 1 to 5, how familiar are you with the CSC evaluation process? So 1 means you are completely new to it, never heard of it before. This is uncharted territory for you. And 5 means that you're fairly comfortable. Maybe you've already been through the process already. And the third question, what do you hope to learn today? Is there something that you've been wondering about? Maybe you're curious about evaluations, IEPs, behavior supports, or you simply want to know what to expect if your child is referred. So I'm going to give you maybe a few seconds to just type some responses in the chat. So again, what grade is your child in? All right, I'm seeing some responses. So we got somebody for 10th grade, level 1 in terms of familiarity, and wanting to learn more about IEPs. Wonderful. Let me see one more person in the chat. We want to get your engagement. All right, there we go. Rising 6th grader. Okay, level 1. All right, so I think we might have a lot of level 1s tonight, so you are in the right place. So thank you for sharing. Keep on sharing as I keep on presenting. So I want you to know whether you're just beginning this journey or you've been through parts of the process before, our goal is for you to leave with a clearer understanding of how schools identify and support students with disabilities, what the evaluation and IEP process looks like, and also what are the resources that are available to help your child to succeed. Now, I'm going to be providing an overview of the CSC referral and evaluation process. Specifically, I'm going to be covering what happens when concerns arise about a child's learning, their development, their behavior, their communication, or their ability to participate successfully in school. We'll talk about how a referral for testing is made, what types of evaluations might be considered, how does the evaluation process help us to understand the whole child, and then what happens after the evaluations are completed. Now, I do want to share at the outset that this process can feel very overwhelming, especially if it's your first time entering the world of special education. So hopefully after tonight's workshop, this process will feel a bit easier to understand and you'll walk away feeling empowered to advocate for your children. As Dr. Mattis shared, I'm going to ask you to please feel free to type your questions in the chat as we go along. We're going to save time at the end of the workshop to answer those questions. Now, one common question that parents often ask is, how do I know if my child should be referred for an evaluation, or when should I consider making a referral? Now, one specific behavior or one difficult day at school does not mean that your child needs to be tested. All children, understandably, they learn at different rates. It's normal for them to experience challenges from time to time, but you should start considering a referral if you're seeing persistent difficulties that are affecting the student's ability to learn, to participate, to make progress in school, even after appropriate supports have been provided. So I have a few examples on the slide of possible reasons why you might refer your child for an evaluation. So for example, if you're noticing that they're having persistent academic difficulties, so you might have a child who is struggling with reading, even though they've been receiving targeted reading intervention from the school, they've been getting small group reading support, but they're still not making adequate progress. And they're falling significantly behind or below what's expected for the grade level. If you're noticing persistent communication concerns, so speech and language concerns, your child is having ongoing difficulty understanding directions. They're having trouble expressing their thoughts clearly. They're having problems with articulation or their speech is unintelligible. If you're noticing significant attention, behavioral, or emotional challenges, that makes it difficult for your child to participate in classroom learning. Some students might have delays in developmental skills, so maybe some motor difficulties that are interfering with their writing or their ability to complete classroom tasks. So these are just a few examples. Some students might experience one or a combination of several of these challenges. Now, before we go into how to make a referral for testing, I want to emphasize that the concerns that I mentioned previously, they don't automatically mean that your child needs special education. So in other words, not every struggling student requires special education services. When a child is struggling, the school is required to try to provide, they have to provide some support within the general education setting whenever appropriate. So schools have what we call multidisciplinary teams. So that consists of teachers, interventionists, specialists who can target those specific areas of concern and then see how your child is responding to those interventions. So it's not a wait to fail approach. If a student is struggling, schools are required to provide some level of support to help improve those areas of deficit or weakness. So I'll go back to the reading example. If a student is struggling in reading, the school would provide additional reading intervention. If they're having trouble with staying organized, maybe they might get some classroom accommodations or supports. If they're having some behavioral challenges, they might receive some behavioral interventions like a simple behavior chart or a positive reinforcement system. So then what happens next? You have come to the place where you have determined your child is struggling. You want them to be referred for testing to see if they require more intensive support. How do you start the process? Well, first you need to know who can make the referral. A referral can be made by the school team. So at times, it's often the teachers who notice the concerns first, and they'll request that the student is evaluated. But also the parent or the caregiver can also make the referral. Now, this is something that often comes as a big surprise. Many parents don't know that they can request an evaluation themselves. You do not have to wait for the school. You have a right to request that your child is evaluated, and the school has to comply with this request. As a parent, if you choose to refer your child for testing, this is what you need to do. You have to submit a formal request to the school. So you can do that via letter or email. I would suggest that you send it to the principal, the school psychologist, the teacher, or directly to the special education office. What matters the most is the content of the letter. The letter should clearly say, I would like my child to be referred to the CSE for evaluation to determine whether they qualify for an IEP. Regardless of who makes the referral, whether it's you or the school, you're going to receive information from the special education office regarding the evaluations that will be completed, and there will be a request for your written consent. You have to sign the consent form and return it to the school or the special education office. I can't tell you how many times in my experience there have been requests for an evaluation and the evaluations don't happen because there's no signature. So no testing can begin without your signed consent. Please remember that. What are the types of evaluations that might be used in the testing process? So I've listed a few here on the slide. Hopefully you can see it. So there's a social history that's typically a parent interview or a questionnaire. You'll see things like, there are questions about your child's developmental history, questions about their social emotional functioning, their educational background. The point of the social history is to get your perspective as a parent, what you see as the concerns, and how long you've been noticing these concerns. The other type of evaluation is a psychological evaluation that's typically done by the school psychologist. Now, I know when many parents hear the words psychological evaluation, they understandably become somewhat nervous, might be wondering if we're trying to diagnose a mental health condition or determine whether or not your child is smart enough. That's not the purpose of a school psychological evaluation. The goal is to understand how the student learns and processes information. The evaluation is going to look at your child's cognitive abilities, things like their memory, their processing speed. And if there are some concerns about attention, autism, anxiety, adaptive skills, parents and students might be asked to complete rating scales as well, just to get an additional measure of social emotional functioning. The educational evaluation, that's typically done by the special education teacher, and that's looking at academic skills, things like reading, writing, math. And the purpose here is to determine what are the areas of academic strengths and also to identify the areas of educational need. A speech and language evaluation that's done by the speech and language therapist. Many people think that this evaluation is only about pronunciation or articulation, but in addition to those areas, the speech and language evaluation looks deeply at a child's communication skills. So things like their understanding of language, their ability to express ideas, vocabulary, grammar. The occupational therapy evaluation, that's done by the occupational therapist. looking at skills that students use throughout the school day. So their fine motor skills, things like how does a student hold a pencil, cutting with scissors, copying from the board, their handwriting, their visual motor skills. So are they able to coordinate what the eyes see with what the hands do? And the physical therapy evaluation done by the physical therapist. This evaluation, it's important when there are what we call mobility issues that are affecting the child's ability to move around safely in the school setting. So the physical therapist might evaluate things like walking, running, climbing stairs, balance, posture, coordination. Another part that might be done, I haven't included it on the slide, but there might be a classroom observation, and also typically there's a request for the parent to submit a physical exam from the child's pediatrician. Okay, so that is a lot of evaluation. So I can imagine that the question is, will my child have to complete all of these evaluations? The answer is no, not necessarily. So how are evaluations chosen? Evaluations are selected based on the student's individual needs. So it should be connected to the concerns that are being investigated. So a helpful analogy is to think about testing like you're visiting the doctor. If you have a sore throat, the doctor doesn't automatically order every possible medical test. If your doctor does that, get another doctor, right? The doctor is going to select tests that help answer the questions that are raised by your symptoms. So the same is true here. Different concerns require different assessments. In my experience as a school psychologist, social history, psychological evaluation, and educational evaluation, those are generally the primary tests that are given. The other tests that I mentioned, they would be given if there are additional concerns. So there are also concerns about communication, a speech and language evaluation would be thrown in. If there are concerns about the fine motor skills, an occupational therapy evaluation might be added. The important point is that there's no one size fits all evaluation package. The goal is to gather the right information to answer the right questions. So one of the biggest concerns that parents do have is understanding the test scores. What do the test results mean? When you receive the reports with the evaluation results, I'm going to tell you, you're going to see a lot of numbers, percentiles. You'll see terms like average or below average. The numbers can seem intimidating at first, and it can be hard to see scores that are classified as low. I want you to bear in mind that your child is much more than just their test scores. The test results do not define your child or predict their future. And evaluation, while it does provide valuable information, it doesn't capture every aspect of a child's personality, their creativity, their relationships, their interests, their motivation, their resilience, or their potential. A score is just one piece of the puzzle. No single score tells the whole story. So I want you to think of evaluations like pieces of a puzzle. Imagine dumping a puzzle out onto the table. Each evaluation gives you a few pieces, but no single piece shows us the whole picture. So for example, the psychological evaluation might show the student has strong reasoning skills, but a weak working memory. The educational evaluation might show for the same student, their reading comprehension is significantly below grade level. The teacher observations might tell us the student works hard, but they struggle to stay focused during their independent work. The parents might share homework takes much longer than expected, or their child becomes frustrated easily. The point is, each of these sources of information tell us part of the student's story. And when we put it all together, the evaluations, the observations, the classroom performance, what we see are patterns that help us to understand the whole child and figure out what their strengths are, how they best learn, and what areas need additional support. So you've gone through the testing, you've gotten the results, you have the report. What happens after the testing is done? After the evaluations are completed, the CSE, which is called the Committee on Special Education, they're going to meet. So this committee includes parents, teachers, the school psychologist, the chairperson, the related service providers. So that's referencing the speech and language therapist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, if it's appropriate, if they were a part of the evaluation process. So everybody comes to the table because everybody brings a different perspective. And together, the team is going to review the results and all relevant information just to determine whether or not the child meets eligibility criteria for special education. If the student is found eligible, then an IEP is developed. And Dr. Mattis is going to talk about this in further detail, along with what support is available if the child is not found eligible for special education services. So you're at the table for this meeting. What is your role as a parent at the eligibility meeting? I can't stress enough that you are an important part of the team. Your voice matters. So as a parent, you're not simply invited to the meeting, you are an equal member of the team. You might see information about your child that the school doesn't see. You know what your child is like at home. You know what motivates them, you know what frustrates them, you know what strategies might work well. And this is no surprise, but sometimes students behave differently at home than they do at school. And that information that you can provide can help the team to better understand the whole picture. I would encourage you as parents, don't be afraid to ask questions at that meeting. If you don't understand a test score, if you don't understand an evaluation term, ask for an explanation. If you don't understand why a particular evaluation was recommended, ask. And if you have concerns or you disagree with something, you can respectfully share your perspective. You do not have to be an education professional to be an active part of your child's education. You know your child, and your perspective matters. So just to summarize, the CSE referral and evaluation process, it's about gathering information to better understand a child's strengths and needs. So some key points that I want you to remember. So take out your notebook, jot this down. There might be a quiz on this later, right? As a parent, you have the right to refer your child to the CSE to see if they qualify for an IEP. I want you to remember that evaluations, they are individualized, so it's not one size fits all. Tests are selected based on the referral concern. No single test score tells you the whole story. I want you to also keep in mind that parents play an important role throughout the process. And most importantly, the goal of the referral and testing process is to understand what your child needs in order to be successful. Okay, so now I'm going to turn over to our next presenter, Dr. Mattis, and she'll talk more about the IEPs and other important information for you to know.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. Um, and I do know that is a lot of information to digest as somebody who sits at the table with parents on a regular. That information that you just shared, I do know it is a lot. So I am going to take what pass the baton on, I think yes. So let me see if I can make sure I get into presentation mode. I am not the very best at Canva, and of course it was just working now. And let me stop sharing and then go again because it seemed to, it froze. So let's try it one more time. It should work. No, let's see. Okay, and let me see if I can make sure I can move around. All right, so as we continue, okay, I think it moves like that. I'm very not so familiar with Canva. All right, and section 2, let me keep touching this screen. Okay, so let's start here. Initially, I had a different start as I thought about this presentation and the second half of it. So, upon counseling, and I know Dana is on, who is also a counselor, I decided to make some shifts. So let's look at debunking some common myths about special education and IEP in particular. Myth here, my child will have an IEP forever. That's a myth. My child will be in a different classroom from other students. Myth. An IEP is only for children with severe physical or intellectual disability. Myth. Students with IEPs are always acting out on purpose. Myth. As a parent, I have to wait before requesting an evaluation for special education. Myth. And that was touched on just now. Children who receive special education services must take ADHD medication. Myth. Medication decisions are made by families in consultation with a healthcare provider. Okay, so these are common myths that parents tend to have. All right, so let's then go further. What is special education? Um, Special education is individualized instruction and support designed to help a child with a disability learn, grow, and succeed in school. Each student receives the tools, the strategies, and an environment to succeed. All right. When we think about special education and IEP, there's a lot of acronyms that come, and it's very heavy for the parents. You see the word IEP, which I just gave the meaning. You hear IDEA, LRE, least restrictive environment, the FIPA. These are different things that comes at a parent. All of this comes at you at a meeting, and sometimes you're not necessarily understanding everything that is being said when you are there. So special education is governed by the Individuals with Disability Education Act. That's all that IDEA. It's a law that ensures that students in special education receive free and appropriate education, right? At no cost to you. At no cost to you. So when we say what is an IEP, on my screen here, it's a legal document. So what you're looking at, if you're on this Zoom and you are a parent with an IEP, you should know what this document is. It's right before you, and I do know it's a lot of information, and a lot of times parents they don't know everything that is before that. So again, it is, let me see if I can lower this here. My screen disappeared, 1 second. I was just trying to lower it and it disappeared. Okay, is it back for you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan, right? And it is a legal document designed for public school students ages 3 to 21 who need specialized instruction and related services due to a disability. And as we just said, the related services are OT, occupational therapy, speech, physical therapy, counseling, Okay, again, it looks like this. It's a document that looks like this. When you look at this document, the disability classifications are before you. There are 13 classifications that can be on this script. And the thing is, again, it's a lot of information. A lot of parents sometimes they don't understand the 13 classifications or how you get it. And as Dr. Anderson just spoke about the psychological testing, which gives full scale IQs, and you can a lot of times the psychologists, they'll look at the numbers and the information to come up with one of the 13 disability. This what you're looking at now says learning disability is just one of the classifications, and there are a number of things and that we all come to the table and decide that this is going to be the classification. On any IP, you're going to see a projected date of annual review because this document is valid for a year. Okay, the as soon as the meeting is over, there's a projected date to start. The thing with an IEP, everything is time stamped. From the time you started the process, the initial process, you have certain amount of days for that to happen. When the IEP takes place, you have certain amount of days for it to be finalized. Everything with an IEP has a time stamp on it, and a lot of times the parents are not aware that this it's time stamped on every IEP. Again, it's a document. On a section of it, there is a page for accommodation. Okay, what are accommodations? Accommodations are changes to how a student learns. For example, the student is allowed to sit near the board or teacher during instruction. The student receives extra time to complete tests or assignment. On every IEP document, there is a page on it that gives you accommodation. You have the accommodation of a human reader. If for some reason your child is having reading difficulties and they cannot read the document, you can have an accommodation for a human reader of the test. Of course, there's a checklist that would need to be filled out first to make sure that you have difficulties decoding, right? It's not that we would want a child not to be able to read a document, read a test, but there are accommodations. If this happens, you can have a human reader. You can have prompts where you can tap the student for refocusing purposes. Different things can be a part of that particular page on the IEP. Again, on this IEP, there are goals on this document, and our council is going to go a little bit further in it, but there are going to be goals on an IEP. It's SMART goals. They are clear, measurable, skill targets that a student is expected to work towards during the school year. Again, another acronym that I just want you to be aware of. It's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, relevant, time bound. So this is an example. A lot of every
Yeah,
student, every student with an
on
IEP,
the same side.
their goals. By the end, this is an example. By the end of the school year, given a grade level reading passage, the student will correctly identify the main idea and two supporting details in 2 out of 5 trials with at least 80% accuracy and moderate support as measured by teacher created assessments. Now, all of these goals are very specific to your child. They should be specific to your child, and these are goals that govern them for a year. And of course, by the end of the school year, you should be asking about these goals. Where is my child? Furthermore, the thing with an IEP is you are given, when a student in a general education classroom, most times students with an IEP will receive their regular report card. They'll receive an IEP, a report card towards their goals. So you are going to be knowing at least 3 times a year You should know what is going on with your child if they do trimester, depending on when the school sends out a report card, a IEP report on the goals should go out. Moreover, or if the child also has related services, you're gonna receive multiple reports. So if you're a parent with a student with an IEP and it's time for a report card and you're not getting multiple reports, something is wrong, because the OT is gonna give you a report. Speech, PT, the general classroom report, as well as the IEP report on the goals. So it is a lot, but it should be taking place. The IEP goals, it looks like this. It's the annual, the criteria, the method, the schedule, how it's being, how often they are looking at these goals, and really working with your child to make sure they are becoming better. And if it is done to fidelity, then it leads to declassification. They'll no longer need this document. It's never made or meant to be for you to be on it forever. You can be declassified, and that's a different conversation we could have about declassification. And one thing to note before I move to the next slide, but I won't jump into, but I'll mention, accommodation on an IEP is different from modification. And where one, you would have to change up the content of what you are doing, but I won't go into that tonight because I know the information is a lot to take in. Understanding your child's IEP setting. So parents should know, where will my child learn? The general education classroom, special education classroom, or a combination, which then when you think of a combination is an ICT classroom. How much time will my child spend with non-disabled peers? Where will services happen? For example, the speech, the counseling, the OT, or specialized instruction, is it a pull-out model? Are they taken out of the class? Is it a push-in model? Ask these questions. What is the least restrictive environment LRE for my child? These are questions that a parent would need to ask, and then this is why we're having this workshop, so it will help you to know what to ask. Okay, now the LRE stands for least restrictive environment. It means that students are educated within the general education classroom as much as possible. We no longer have this thing, resource room, if your child has an IEP, right? Placing a student outside of the regular classroom should only happen if it's necessary for their education. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying it happens when it's necessary. Okay? Special education services, when we talk about least to more restrictive, you have where on the IEP, it's only related services, no cost to you. You need a speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, counseling services. It's no cost to you. The IEP will have only related services. You have special education teacher support services, set services. This is more like a pull out service where if the child is in, for example, if your child is in 6th grade, however, they are functioning at a 3rd grade level or a 4th grade level, the set services, when they pull you out, they try their best, that special education teacher support services, to work with you on 4th grade level, 5th grade, whatever is specified on the IEP, to get you to your chronological 6th grade level. So you could be in 6th grade, but you are functioning at a 3rd grade reading level, and the set support is there. And integrated co-teaching model is where you have a general education teacher and a special licensed special education teacher. You have 2 teachers in the classroom. A lot of times, parents, when you see 2 teachers, ask, what is it, an ICT classroom? Then you have special class in community school. You have 12 to 1. You have 12 to 1 to 1, where you have 12 students. You have a teacher. You have a paraprofessional. If it's high school, you have 15 students, you have a teacher, all the way to 6 students in a classroom, to 8 students, to more residential. For you have schools where that deals with autism. You have hospital instruction. So all of these are the settings that will be on an IEP. It's on the document. I do know sometimes it's a lot to look through, and there are benefits to having the document. So there are academic benefits of an IEP. First of all, lessons are tailored to how your child learns and address specific skill gaps in reading, writing, math, or other areas, as I just explained. It is special education support. A special education teacher may work directly with your child and collaborate with other teachers, and that could be assets, it could be an ICT model. Of course, the IEP establishes individualized goals and explains how your child's progress will be measured and shared with you, and I talked about that just now. You have, again, the supports. When we talk about the accommodation, it may include extended time. If your child has test anxiety and they need a little bit more time, it can provide extended time. You can have a quiet workspace, you can have small group instruction, you can have assistive technology. And the thing is, I know that the extended time is there, and I know that the state tests are no longer timed, so you have all day to do them, but you do still have on extended time on an IEP. Okay, not only do we have behavioral benefits, academic benefits, you also have behavioral and emotional benefits, right? So the individualized plan, it may include positive behavioral support strategies that will be used with your child. Students may receive instruction and strategies to help manage emotions and respond appropriately in different situations. You have counseling and related services. Students may receive school-based services at no cost to you: counseling, speech, OT, PT. And you also, the counselor, in many regards, will do at-risk counseling. So if you have a teenager, there are different things that is happening that will warrant at-risk counseling that is provided by the school. That's provided. And you have rights. I know Dr. Anderson she just spoke about it. You have the eligible students have the right to free, appropriate public education. Parents are important members of you have a right. You, at the begin, everything about an IEP and the process, you have so much power. Parents have so much power that they're not tapping into. You have informed consent. Schools must obtain a written parental consent before an initial evaluation, and of course after, before services can begin. You have to sign informed consent. The thing about an IEP and all the tests that Dr. Anderson just mentioned, at the end of it, and you've gotten all the information, if you do not want an IEP, you don't have to go any further. This is the power that you have. Language access. Parents may request explanation in and information in their preferred language. We do have a lot of Spanish speakers. You can request it in your language. There is the procedural safeguard. Parents have the right to receive information about their legal rights. At the beginning of a meeting, one of the members will read you your rights. Students must be educated with non-disabled peers to the maximum extent appropriate. So parents have the power to do the things. This book, if you go to the DOE, you'll receive this book. But the thing about this, inside it, I have here, it's a little bit, it's not on the brighter side. It just says the procedural safeguard, the rights for parents with disability. This is online. You can access it online. Your rights, it's there. The Family Guide to Special Education for School Age Children in New York. You can see section 8 page 50 for information about parental rights. This book, if you go to the Department of Education, any one of the offices, this book is there. You can access the information in this book online. There's everything that you need to know from ages 3 to 12. It is a guide, it explains everything. But again, this is why we're having this workshop, because the information, it is a lot, and this is why we're here, and you can tap into the expertise that you have available. What parents can do next? Again, ask questions during the IEP meeting. Ask questions. Request explanation in your preferred language. Review the IEP before signing. Keep copies of the evaluations and the progress reports. Keep them. Contact the school if the services are not happening. Contact the school. And that is this section. And before I do hand over to our third section of our presentation tonight, one thing I did want to mention is a 504. If you are if you did not qualify for an IEP, you have a lot of things that can be granted to you with a 504. That's a completely different document, but there is so much that you can be granted with a 504 plan. And the thing about an IEP, as our next presenter is getting ready to come on in, the thing about an IEP, it takes you to age 21 when you're going to college. Then you can take that with you, but you're gonna need at that point a 504 when you go to the disabilities office if you're college. And a 504 you can get, but there are different steps. If you have a child and they are experiencing testing anxiety, you can get a 504. However, there are different steps. If you have any questions about that at the end, I will take those questions. Keep the questions coming in the chat as we approach our third and final section of this workshop. And I do already know it is a lot of information as somebody that sits at the table daily in these meetings. Like Dr. Anderson, I do know it is a lot of information to take in. So this is why we are here. Thank you so much. I now pass it on over to Ms. McPherson.
All right. Good evening, everybody. If you can hear me, may I have a thumbs up, please? Okay, yes. Thank you so much. So I know that, as Dr. Mattis said, that we've been receiving a lot of information this evening. Great information, but still a lot. So I'm just going to ask you to take just a second and deep breathe with me. I'm just going to give you some instructions, tell you when to breathe in, going to hold for a couple of seconds, and then you breathe out. So again, preparing our brains and our bodies for the next section of this presentation. All right. So find somewhere comfortable, a comfortable position to sit in. Make sure you're hearing my voice. I'm looking at Sister Waverly. Let me see if I can see anybody else. No, everyone else is hiding. Oh, see Pastor Mattis. Wonderful. All right. So I'm just going to ask you, you're going to take a deep breath in when I say go, and you're going to hold it for 5. I'm going to count, and we're going to release after 5. I'm going to do it 3 times. All right. Okay. Comfortable position, feet flat. You're comfy. All right. Deep breath in. Go. Hold for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Okay, let's try again. Deep breath in. Hold for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Wonderful. One more. Hold for 5 seconds. Deep breath in. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. I think we just created some space in our brains to hear this last section of our presentation. Now, I'm going to talk about supporting a child who has an IEP. So we just heard about what's an IEP, what the process is, if we wanted to get our child supported in this way while they're at school. But now I want to turn the focus on us and our homes. How can we support the children while at home and also support them, while at school? Based on what was presented earlier, I think most of us would have gotten a snapshot of what happens behind the scenes at school. And we see all that work that's going in. But what do we do at home? Right? How do we support our children so that they get the best chance that we can give them? I know many of us on this line are immigrants. And I know in Jamaica, there is a saying we often use at school. We say that education is the key to success. It's something that we say all the time, right? And, even though it's true to some extent, but sometimes it gives us this mindset that that's all that matters, and as Dr. Anderson pointed out earlier, that we want to ensure that we're supporting the whole child. Education is very important, and especially if we want to go ahead. But again, we want to ensure that education is not just academics, it's the entire child. All right. So I want to give a little activity. I want us to do an activity together. You don't have to answer. I'm giving you 15 seconds, right? You don't have to share. It's really something that I want you to reflect on. Think of one thing that your child is really good at. One thing that your child is really good at, and one thing that is harder for them. So one thing your child is really good at, and one thing that's harder for them. I'm giving you 15 seconds to do this. Timer has started. You can begin. All right. So I hope that you could have thought of one thing that your child is really good at, and also that one thing that is harder for them. And I gave you this quick activity to reflect on because that's the type of mindset, the two minds. I want you to hold that as I present, that your child, although may struggle in something, they also have their strengths, right? Remember, we're talking about the whole child. So sometimes our children just need the right support to shine. And that's what we've been talking about tonight. What is the right support? And we've heard so many different options that were presented. And we just want to keep in mind that, again, what we're seeking is support for our children. Okay. So it starts with how we see them. This is a mindset thing. This is how I see it. The support we give is often shaped by what we believe is possible. So when we have our children, and sometimes we compare them to maybe their cousins, their siblings, other children at church or any social space that we may find ourselves, and we see a child doing well, and we may be comparing our children to them. And what that does, it gets in the way of us seeing our children, the whole child, or seeing their strengths, right? And that is something that it can seep into our minds. We may not recognize it's happening, but it's seeping into our minds and it's influencing how we are interacting with the children, right? And so it's so important that we have the right mindset towards our children. We see them, we understand them in their fullness, not just their needs, not just their deficiencies, not just their struggles, but we also recognize their strengths. And when we recognize their strengths, then we can celebrate them. If and you can also think about it. When was the last time you celebrated your child for something that they did well? That's not academic. Even if it is, yes, that's fine. But also something that they did well, you observed them, you spent time in their space, you saw them being kind to somebody, and you were very clear and specific about celebrating that thing that you saw your child doing. Acknowledge the challenge. No, this is not to say that we expect that we are going to lower our expectations of our children. So I want to make that very clear as well. I find that sometimes when children or people in general have disabilities, there is a tendency for many of us to, sort of reduce our expectations, or maybe think that, we need to have pity, I guess, on them, or be sorry for them. And this can get in the way of how we provide opportunities for children who have IEPs, right? It doesn't mean that they're broken. It just means that we need to support them in a way that will help their strengths to shine, and believe in the possibility of growth. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the tools. So, before we talk about the practical ways to support our children, I want to show you something that I found while preparing for this presentation. It's the research that was done by the Journal of Health and Social Behavior. And what they found is that students with disabilities and IEPs, they face additional barriers to their IEPs. So not to the IEPs, sorry, to their disabilities. So, for example, they have a learning disability. They could have a behavioral issue, whatever it is. The list was shared with us earlier. And in addition to that struggle, your children may, not that they must, but they may face additional barriers. And what this research found is that one such barrier is the beliefs and expectations of the adults around these children often affect their opportunities and outcomes. And that's something that I shared just now. They found that lower expectations from adults can influence how students see their own potential. Just think about that for a little bit. The things that we may say to our students, or how we treat them, what we expect of them. We don't challenge them. We don't, put them in situations where they can be challenged or grow, because we feel like they can't do it. We don't let them try first. And we find that that type of environment, or that type of influence, can affect the way that they see themselves and their own potential. So again, I want you to bear that in mind. And remember, this evening, we're talking about shifting mindset, right? So I'm going to share 4 practical ways to support and empower your child. We're going to talk about how we can encourage our children, how we can help them to plan, listening, and helping them to discover themselves outside of the IP, right? Okay. So our first tool is, sorry, this is in my way.
I think that Miss McPherson was having some issues with her slide. I'm gonna give her 1 minute to just come back in, and while we wait for her to come, I do see questions in the chat. Um, we could take one of the questions. Dr. Anderson, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Let me look at these questions. Hold on a second.
So I see a question here as we give her a minute to come back in. How can we reduce stigma around learning differences and IEPs so that being identified as having a learning need doesn't cause a child to be perceived as less intelligent or less capable by their peers or even their teachers? And and how can schools help shift the focus from what a child can't do to understanding their strengths and how they learn best? So it's a very loaded question.
It's a great question. I think part of Ms. McPherson's presentation was going to get into that because she was focusing on the mindset shift in terms of how we understand what it means to have, certain areas of weakness. It doesn't mean that that defines the whole child. And I think should be able to get into that a bit more. So I think we should give her a chance to finish the presentation because I do think that that question is going to be answered.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think she is coming in. Um, and there's another question. I'll read it
Mhm.
as she gets set up. How can schools make sure that access to learning, let me see,
Learning evaluation.
I'm sorry, Miss McPherson was, let me start again. She was trying to come in with access. How can schools make sure that access to learning, evaluations, and accommodation is equitable? I've noticed in my practice that some families are very knowledgeable about how to advocate for accommodations, such as extended time, while other families may not even know that these supports exist or that their child could benefit from them. How do we make sure that students aren't advantaged simply because their parents know how to navigate the system, and that students who genuinely need the support aren't being overlooked? Another very good question, but I see that Miss McPherson is back with us, and just making sure that you are able to share and continue. And we will, at the end, go back to any questions that you may have. You can continue to share the questions in the chat as we approach the end of the third section. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you guys for your patience. I don't know what happened to the computer, but anywho. All right. So the first tool, as I said, I was talking about giving you 4 tools or 4 ways that you can support your children. Are you seeing that my antivirus needs to be repurchased? Did that show or no, it didn't?
Did not. You are telling on yourself.
Okay. All right. Lord Jesus. Okay. Okay, so tool number 1 is encourage a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And these terms became buzzwords a few years ago, so some of you may already know what these are. But for the purpose of tonight, I thought it was fitting that this is something that we plant in our minds, right? Especially culturally. I feel like having this shift would be very helpful, not just for our children, but also for us as adults. So, what is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset? A fixed mindset believes your abilities are set in stone. It can't change, right? This is how you are. Some stay. This is how I'll always be. And you'll hear terms or statements coming out of or mouths like I can't do it. I'm just not good at this. I made a mistake, so I failed. Everyone else is better than me. You start to compare yourself. My IEP means something is wrong with me. I need to prove that I'm smart. This is too hard. I need to give up. Well, the growth mindset believes that your ability can be developed. And so instead of saying that I can't do this, you could say, I can't do it yet. And so this is something that we want to teach our children. Add a little yet at the end, right? I saw a chart in a classroom once that said that yet is a very powerful word because it connotes hope. It, gives you this feeling that, I may can't do it now, but maybe in the future I can. And so we want to shift our children's thinking and our thinking as well that we cannot do something now, but in the future we'll be able to do it, right? We're not stuck. I can improve with practice and support, right? Again, the yet. I can improve with practice and support. It's not like I'm just not good at it and it's final. I can improve with practice and with support. Mistakes help me learn. I like this one for two reasons. I remember hearing a story years ago about this man. I think he was creating the light bulb. He was making the light bulb. And I guess there are different versions, but the one that I heard said that he made like over 999 mistakes. And then, someone asked him, then why didn't you just give up? Right. And he says, well, these mistakes help me to, it has taught me what not to do. So it has given me a data or information as to what I should not do. And it also helps me to know what to do, right? So the way that we see mistakes is important, or even the word failure. If a child fails or if they make a mistake, we know how we sometimes do. Maybe people on this line are not like that, but I know when I was growing up, and you're in class and you make a mistake, you might, get somebody shouting at you, or in certain homes where there are children struggling, you might get a little slap on the hand, right? Because the mistake was made, or certain things are said, are you an idiot? Why you're not getting it? 1 + 1 is 2. It's quite easy, right? And so we want to, again, tonight, to shift away from that. And I understand, I get frustration. I get it. But again, we want to ensure that we are shifting the mindset from I'm stuck to I can grow. And seeing mistakes correctly will help us shift that mindset. My progress doesn't have to look like someone else's. I heard someone say that comparison is the stealer to greatness, or something like that, or the stealer of greatness. And I believe that is true, right? No, your progress does not have to look like someone else's. You are your own person and you have your own purpose, and your learning is different. And these are things that we want to encourage and pour into. We want to breathe and speak life into our children. So no, your progress doesn't have to look like your cousins, or it doesn't have to look like your sister. You don't have to move as quickly as your brother. We want to let them know that it's okay, again, while challenging them to go forward, but they don't need to compare themselves to their classmates or, anyone else. My IEP gives me tools and support to help me succeed. We spoke about that before. Dr. Anderson mentioned this is the whole child, right? The IEP is a support. It's a tool. It is not who you are. I need to keep learning and growing. And this is hard. What strategy or support can I try? So again, shifting from a fixed, I will never change, I can never grow, to a growth mindset. I can change and I can grow. Tool number 2. Dr. Mattis spoke about this earlier, but she was coming from the school perspective that when the IEPs are being created, then SMART goals are created. However, SMART goals don't belong to the schools, right? They belong to us too. And so we can help our children to create SMART goals for themselves. This is very important. When I'm working with children, it's one of the things that I do with them. I help them to create their own goals. And I find that when they do that, they take ownership of it and they're more likely to work at it than if I just create it for them and say, you do this, right? So when we work together, when we collaborate on creating the goals and it's important to them, then they're more likely to take the steps to succeed, right? So what are some examples of SMART goals? Dr. Mattis spoke about the acronym before, that S is for specific, M is for measurable, A is for achievable, R relevant, and T time bound. An example of being specific when creating your SMART goal for the S in SMART. What exactly do I want to improve? That's something that, you know, the child can ask themselves, or you can ask the child, what do you want to work on this week? M, how will I know that I'm making progress? Is it measurable? You could say, for example, you know, the child wants to increase their grade from a 50 to a 55, so they can measure it. Did you accomplish your goal? And they don't have to sit there thinking, well, maybe accomplish it, because you agreed to a number, and they can work towards that. Is it achievable? The child is at 50, possibly wants to get to 80, and they said, you know what, I want to do it in a week. No, you know that's not achievable, right? And it's not realistic. And so we want to work together with our children to help them to make the goal achievable so that it motivates them. Because I can tell you what I've experienced is when they set these goals and they mean well, set the goals for themselves, if we don't help them to make it realistic, then they get discouraged and they give up, right? And we want to avoid that. Is it relevant? I remember asking a class, we're discussing SMART goals, and I asked them a question for them to come up with their goals to do with academics. And somebody said to me, well, I want to learn how to ride my hoverboard. Had nothing to do with what we were talking about, but that is what they came up with, right? And I had to reel them in, like, nope, that's not what we're doing. So we want to ensure that it's relevant. And even though that's a goal that they could accomplish, right? Because we're talking about the whole child here, but we can also let them know that, you know, we could set that goal as well, but right now we're focusing on this. And time bound. When will I accomplish my goal? Is it this week? Is it in 2 weeks? Is it in 3 weeks, right? When will I reach my goal? So that's something we want to talk with our children about. And again, if you need this information, then we could share it with you. And there are benefits when children, when you work with your children to create these goals, it makes the progress visible. They could see it. If they say they're going to read 10 pages a day, they know if they read the 10 pages a day, right? It makes it tangible and trackable and visible. It builds confidence because reaching small milestones create a sense of accomplishment. It encourages independence. And this is something that we want to build in our children. And by the way, these are life skills. They can use this beyond, beyond elementary, high school, college. If they become this person who plans and sees life like this, they're more likely to be less frustrated because they are able to break things up into steps. And so this is also a life skill. And it's not too late for us to learn it as well. Focuses on growth and not limitations. It reduces perfectionism, which is highly important because it encourages effort and consistency instead of needing to be perfect. And as I mentioned before, it builds ownership. So essentially, the SMART goals basically says small steps today and big success tomorrow. Before I move into the third tool, I want to share another set of results with you. So the IEP, although I shouldn't even say although, it's a tool. It's a wonderful thing for students who need it. But what we've found is that it can affect how they feel about themselves and how they see themselves. And the Department of Education study did a research a few years ago on students with IEPs to find out what the social and emotional impact of having an IEP, what that was having on our students. And this is what they found. They found that 37% of students with IEPs reported being teased or called names. 27% reported having rumors spread about them. 22% reported having items stolen from them. 14% reported being physically attacked or involved in fights. Now, I'm not saying that this is a direct correlation. Like if your child has an IEP, it therefore means that they will go through these things. But the research also found that even though the children went through these things, they also enjoyed school. They found school to be an enjoyable experience. However, they experienced this as well, in addition to having an IEP. And so I want you to bear this in mind as we go to the next tool. Listening to your child. Very important. Listening builds trust, strengthens connection, and helps your child feel heard. And I hope that you're recognizing that these tools, you could start them now, tonight, right? Ask your children how their day was. Very important for you to know that. That's how you see into their lives after school. Spend a little time talking with them. I know there are some parents who possibly work when their kids are at home. I know those situations exist. Make a phone call, right? Call them, have a conversation with them, check in. If the weekend, and please don't wait until the weekend to speak with them. If you could do it daily, then do that. If you could encourage them, if your child likes to write, they can probably journal it. If you're a nurse and you're busy, you can't answer the phone or whatever in that moment. When you get home, they're asleep, ask them to text it to you. Find ways for your children to communicate with you what's going on with them during the day. Pay attention to changes in their mood and behavior or behaviors. Take their concerns seriously. Please do not be quick to give them an answer or to brush it off and say, Pitney, our child, just ignore them or something like that. I know sometimes we want to find the solution quickly. And sometimes we feel like, we grow up tough. And so we need our kids to grow up tough as well. And even though that is important, but we do not want to ignore or to invalidate or trivialize their concerns. Take their concerns seriously. Ask about their friends, teachers, and classes. Create a space, a safe space for them to speak honestly. And that comes from prior relationships. So not just when things are going wrong, start to cultivate that with your children, as of now. And if you haven't already, it's not too late to approach them and ask questions and ask them, what do you need from me? How can I help you? If they don't know what you need, you can, put your heads together, explore. You could ask them questions. Do you want me to come to the school to speak with somebody? Do you want me to speak with a counselor or the psychologist? Do you have a friend at school that you could speak to? Is there an adult at school that you trust? You can ask them questions and find out what they need from you so that you know how to best support them, because we don't want to add to their frustration and their stress. All right. Tool 4, this is our last tool. Discover their strengths and interests. And I'm seeing my friend, Miss Griffiths, who I've worked with many years. And this is something that she tells parents all the time. Discover your children's strengths and interests. look into it, whether they like sports or music, art, technology, cooking, leadership, community service, whatever it is, singing. I met a boy who was into gardening, loved gardening. It's very important that we explore these strengths and their interests with our children, because again, re-emphasizing that we're talking about a whole child. We want to know what makes them come alive, right? Some kids, it's not the academics, it's something else. It's doing one of these things. It's music, it's sports, it's the arts, it's something. It's being kind, it's their personality, so that's something again that we want to explore and we want to encourage. All right, so almost there. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Barriers parents may face. One of the things I want you to know is that you're not alone, and many parents face challenges, but the support makes the difference. So if you're feeling disempowered, you're unsure of your role, talk with somebody. What that may sound like is that I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You may have cultural beliefs or stigma associated with disabilities. I know that, this can get in the way of how we view our children when we're told that they have a struggle or they need an IEP. And sometimes we want to know what other people would think of our kids. And also that gets in the way and adds to our frustration. That can be a barrier. Past personal struggles that can influence the expectations for your child. You may say to yourself, I struggled growing up, so I want more for my child. Or I remember struggling, so I don't want to challenge my child. It could go either way. So we want to be cognizant of that, that our personal struggles are not getting in the way of our children getting what they need. Misunderstanding the IEP. This is why we're having tonight's discussion. This can be a barrier as well. Viewing it as a sign that our children are dunce or incapable. An IEP means there is something wrong with the child, right? That mindset can be a barrier. Anger or frustration with the process. The process is too long, too stressful. That can also get in the way. Distrust of the school leading to disengagement. Sometimes I know sometimes people don't trust the system, and that can also get in the way of your children getting the help that they need. And fear of labeling, how others see and perceive your child and your family. So how do we move beyond these barriers? We first acknowledge our own feelings. Whether we're feeling disappointed, fear, anger, or uncertainty, we have to first acknowledge it. We don't have to show it, but we can, within ourselves, say, I'm feeling angry in this moment that my child needs an IP or it's not getting the math correct or something like that. You can pause and say to yourself, I'm feeling upset right now and I just need to step back. Separate your child's journey from your own past experiences. Your child is a person. They're not you. And I know it can be difficult, but again, if you need help to do that, there are people we can talk to. Learn about the IP. Understanding reduces fear and stigma. Watch our words. We must watch our words and watch the names and how we speak to our children, because children often absorb how we speak about their abilities. Protect the atmosphere at home. Frustration with school or the IEP can unintentionally affect the entire household. This is something that research has shown that when a child has a disability, or, it seems like all the focus is going to that child, there can become tension within the home. So that's something that we want to be cognizant of. Partner with the school. Ask questions, advocate, and stay engaged. This is what the professionals are there for. It takes a village. This is something we say all the time. It is you. Your child support system consists of you. your child. We don't leave them out. So they themselves have to know how to advocate for themselves. Their teachers, special education staff, counselors, related service providers, community support. Stay connected, ask questions, share what you see at home. This was said earlier. And remember, you are an important member of your child's team, as Dr. Anderson said before. And lead with hope. Remember the growth mindset. An IEP describes needed support. It does not define your child. So basically, to sum up what I just talked about, and also what I would really like you to take away, is that sometimes supporting our children begins with examining ourselves, examining what we believe, examining what we say, and the atmosphere we create around them. Your call to action: see your whole child, celebrate their strengths, support their struggles, challenge their growth, and never let an IP define their full potential, because together, everyone who is a part of your support system, we can help your children to believe in who they are and what they can become. All right. Thank you so much. And now we will move into our questions.
Marvelous, marvelous. Thank you, thank you, thank you, all our presenters tonight. Wow, it's a lot of information and it's a lot to process. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Dr. Anderson, Ms. McPherson. Thank you. We will uh, let's take some questions. Whether you want to unmute, we had a question earlier, and I think that that was answered. And I do see here a question: how do you deal with parents who are in denial and refuse to get assessments done, even though it is clear the child would benefit from an IEP based on their learning challenges? And I'll ask any of the presenters to chime in. But I do know that when a child is experiencing constant difficulty and constant failure, unfortunately for some, they will say the child is lazy, the child is this and that, and there is a challenge for the parent to accept that there is something wrong. What I usually do, here's what I usually do. I'm not saying this will work for you, Valerie, but I usually bring them into the office. I invite them in to sit with me. I'm not having a phone conversation, and I'm sitting with them. And when I sit with them, I we look at what's happening in the first trimester, the second trimester, the third trimester. I sit with them, I look at the scores. We talk about whether the student was retained in the grade a year before. If they're retained in second grade, they're in third grade, they're also failing, and we sit down and we look at the different tests. We talk about everything together. And then I will say to them, what if we do an evaluation? It is just for us to know information. You have to, you are the parent, you have the power, you can consent or not give consent. But the tests will show some things that you can now look like a doctor and look at the test and see what it's saying, and then that will guide you. So Valerie, I usually do that, particularly when they're in denial, when they refuse to do the different things and move forward. I bring them to my office and we sit and we look at the evidence before us. And then they decide, but at least you'd have done the extra step of doing that. I don't know if anyone has anything to add on that, and if that answered your question, Valerie.
I would just say I agree exactly with what you shared, Dr. Mattis. I've encountered that same challenge, right? And I think it's about having a conversation and validating what the parents' concerns are. Sometimes it is just trying to shift the mindset because there's a particular way of viewing, what does the testing mean? What does it mean if my child gets an IEP? Are they stuck with this for life? It's really a matter of clearing up any confusion and really highlighting what are the benefits of getting the test done and how, the child is struggling right now. They need the support. So what can we do? And this is just a tool to help them now. And then you continue to monitor whether or not they continue to need the IEP in the future based on how their progress is and what the data shows.
And just to add that as you shared earlier, Dr. Anderson, that the IEP is the last of the last portion of the process, if you will. And therefore, I'm assuming there's communication with the parents, initially of all the supports and accommodations that are being provided to the child, even though sometimes it's still an issue and there are underlining reasons that I found throughout the years that would contribute to that resistance, but as Dr. Mattis said, I've found that sharing information and being very clear with them and also not removing their agency, letting them know. And I think we spoke about that tonight, that they have power and we have to remind them of that this is not us making a decision for you. This is, I want to show you the evidence and so that you can decide, what is best for your child. This is why we think it's best, but we want to hear from you because it's your child, right? So I think again, as we are working these things out, we have to help the parents to understand that listen, this is your decision as well.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a question in the chat. Another question. Is it better to enroll your child in public or charter schools for all related IEP services as against private schools? I mean, I can kick it off with that question. The thing with the public schools, you are more likely to have all the related service providers in the public school as against a charter school. Now, not all charter schools have all the related services. However, if they do not have the related services, you are provided with a document that you can go outside and get the related services while in the charter schools. The issue is it's going to take some more labor on your part because while they are in school from 7:30 to 3:30, within that time, or even if it's after school, the related services, speech, OT, counselor, it's done within that time. If the charter school has the provider, if they do not, you are what's the name of the letter? What's the name of the letter? It slips me. The letter that you get that you will now take, the government is still paying for it. Dana, are you on? I'm forgetting the name of the letter. But you use that letter to go out and it's paid for. But with my experience, you are given a list of like the page is like what 500 pages, names on it, and a lot of the names are and the numbers are not even working. But again, to answer the question, the public schools are more likely to have all the providers working for them within that public school. A charter school, a lot of them do not have speech, OT, PT on payroll. However, you can get a letter and the service can be on a Saturday. in the evening, on Zoom, stuff like that. So in private schools, the name is a little bit different. It's a little bit different in private schools. Any if Dr. Anderson wants to, or anyone else wants to chime in.
My experience has been just within the public school setting, and I will say that that's the best route in terms of ensuring that you're getting all of the related services. I've never had an experience within the public school setting wherein a child needs occupational therapy and that can't be provided.
Exactly. Exactly. Any other questions where that's excellent question, um, for related services? Any other question there?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I
There's
Not,
an echo, so it's hard to hear your question.
can you try again?
hearing me better? Hearing me better?
Yes.
Yes. As you were saying, it's easier for you to access these services in public schools. I have a coworker that's in the public school system, and her child is not receiving the services that ought to be given to the child. And it's to me, what she tells me is that her child is above the other children. Like, they're nonverbal, they're not, they're way delayed than her child. And she wants her child to be able to express himself, reading and writing. He's not getting that. And she said even the school gives her the report card. And she was so shocked because there are a whole bunch of lies on the report card. There was no improvement. They're saying that he knows how to read and write using his pencils, and she had to call back the teachers like, "You're lying to me." So what can she do to ensure that her child is getting what he needs to get?
And this child has an IEP.
Yes.
That was going to be my first question too.
If the thing is, as I said at one point, and you can all chime in, you can track this. It's a legal document. It should be provided, and if it shouldn't be, the parent is tracking at the first report, the second, if it's 4 reports for the year, the OT person, if you're saying the child is not making any progress with the penmanship, which is occupational therapy, I would say to you to tell mom to request a meeting with the OT teacher. Request a meeting with the occupational therapy, because they are being paid that. And if the IEP says for the week they're working with the OT person 2 times per week, then find out from that person what is happening each time when they're supposed to meet 2 times per week. It's possible that they're not meeting. It's even possible that they don't have somebody, an OT person, working there. So information is important. I would request a meeting with the occupational therapy to find out how does it look when they meet 2 times per week. And that's an example. It could be 1 time per week, but certainly they are meeting.
Thank you.
I have to say, that's very disappointing to hear, honestly, because I think a lot of parents are so trusting of the schools, and they just assume that their child is getting what they should be, and that's how it ought to be. And I think that's why we're going through this workshop tonight, so that you know what your right is as a parent. Dr. Mattis had gone through with the IEP that it's something that is reviewed every year. So you do have an annual review meeting, but as a parent, you can request, you can ask for a program review meeting at any time. So if you are concerned about what the current services are, reach out, send an email to whoever is the case manager. The case manager for the IEP is generally the person that the student is meeting with the most, right? So if they have an IEP where it's just speech and language therapy that they receive, the case manager is generally the speech and language therapist. Reach out to any member of that child's team and say that you want to schedule a program review meeting to go over the current IEP and to discuss if there needs to be any increase in services. And request specifically that, you want to see what the data shows, what is the progress monitoring data, and does it show that the child is achieving the IEP goal? If they're not achieving the IEP goal and it's something that they've been working on for a while, that should prompt the need for some change to the service.
Thank you.
Any other questions? These are very, very good questions. Very good questions. Is there anything else? We would love just 5 more minutes, and we will take any lingering questions, or if there's anything.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Sure, go ahead, please.
Now, my daughter had an IEP, and she got the IEP very late because it was difficult for me to believe that she had an issue. But when she got the IEP, they gave her an extension of time. She tested in a different room, and she really began to excel. As my daughter graduated high school and went to college, she was failing horribly. Even though that IEP expired, I gave the IEP to the college and they began to extend her time with testing. They couldn't give her a private room for testing, so they placed her to the front of the class. She literally made the president's list.
Wow.
And even though I didn't have that IEP expired, I was able to say, my daughter said she ran out of time for the test. And they begin to see the test incomplete and it wind up helping her. And yeah, I just say how beneficial it was. It just hurts me that I didn't find her issue until she was in the ninth, going into the 10th grade. That's all I wanted to comment and say.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And as I said, you usually at the end of the IEP, it becomes something different that a lot of parents don't know, that you can go to the disability office at the end of 12th grade and it becomes, you take the IEP, you go to the disability office, you get a 504, you talk to all these things is information. Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of parents don't know that. And Dana, one of the counselors that I work with, just reminded me it's an RSA letter. It's I think Deslin asked this question. You are given what is called an RSA letter that you can then take with you, and the related service authorization letter. Related service authorization letter. You can take that letter, and the service is provided after school or at other times. So that is some information that you need. Any other question? This has been very, very, I love the questions, very excellent questions. Again, we want to make sure that you are leaving tonight empowered, or even leaving tonight with more questions, and possibly we will, who knows, we may do a part 2 on this. I do know it is a lot of information, but we are here to help and to guide you.
There is a question in the chat that I'm not sure if I think we addressed it partially, but I think it's worth reading. That says, how can schools make sure that access to learning evaluations and accommodations is equitable? Some families are very knowledgeable about how to advocate for accommodations, such as extended time, while other families may not even know that these supports exist or that their child could benefit from them. How do we make sure that students aren't advantaged simply because their parents know how to navigate the system, and that students who genuinely need support aren't being overlooked?
It's the heavy one.
It is so heavy.
It will take us places that the time won't allow, because parents who are empowered will advocate. Those
Exactly.
who do not know about 504s do not know that they can, um, get certain things. It's unfortunate. We're going to be, it's going to lead us to talk about some real conversations that time will not allow us to talk about. Um, but
Well, I think it's a perfect segue to us sharing that we do have a resource bank.
yes, yes, a perfect segue. Dr. Anderson, please go ahead with that.
Yeah, so we have a resource bank that we can share. If you want to type your email address, you can share it privately so that we can copy and share it with you. But it has a list of resources with regards to, maybe you might want to have testing done on autism. Dr. Mattis had talked about the procedural safeguard notice. We have the links for that, but also there are places that are available to families that you can learn more about how you can advocate for your child. So for those families who don't necessarily know what is out there, or they go to a meeting and they feel like they're in some ways taken advantage of because of their lack of knowledge, there are places that you can go where they can guide you towards maybe a parent advocate or give you information so that you go into these meetings or share your concerns with the school from a place of knowledge. So, very good information is there. So if you want access to it, just share your email address. Dr. Mattis, who would you like that to be shared with, or how can they share?
You could go ahead and share it with any of the co-hosts right now if you want that bank. We are 4 minutes from ending the session, so please go ahead. You could share it with Lysandra. You could share that with Dr. Anderson, myself. Please go ahead and share your emails right now. We can share the bank with you, as she said. If you need guidance where it comes onto autism, where can I get my child tested for autism? It's becoming so very popular diagnosis, even though it's an educational diagnosis on an IEP. So we that's something different, and we could talk about that at a different setting. But let's be clear on what that is when we talk about autism on an IEP. Robinson, you had a question while we are gonna be wrapping up. Please share if you would like to get a link to the resource bank, please go ahead and share your emails. Robinson, you had a question?
Good afternoon, everyone. Um, are the presenters prepared to, are they interested in binding their slides, to have it disseminated as an informational packet?
We're open to that, certainly, yes.
Excellent.
And we could possibly share this video too. Um, so go ahead. Are we getting these emails?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, just a quick question. And I was thinking of information can be so the information is loaded and parents can be confused where IEP is concerned, those information. But how do we help children understand that they are receiving these services or understand what IEP is? How can we break that down for children to understand that?
um, Before I answer you, could you just share any of the presenters? You can also send questions to Can New Rochelle. That's the church's email address. You can go ahead and share your questions with Can New Rochelle ny@gmail.com. If any member could also put in the church's email address, you can send questions there. And to wrap up, we're going to try to answer this in 2 minutes. I'll start if anyone of the presenters can, because we're going to close out. We have already gone over time, but I thank you for your patience, and so many of you stayed with us. Now, this is something that I was talking about today. A lot of the students, some of them don't even know that they have an IEP. Some students do not know that they have an IEP. And they don't even understand the classifications. It was a conversation we were having. So one of the things I do know at my job, our counselor goes through the IEP, especially when they have counseling as a mandated service. The counselor goes through the IEP and said, you have this document, this is how we're working towards your goals. So unfortunately, many students, even though when you get to 12, you can attend the meeting. After 12 years old, I think it was 15 before. Please check me on that. I think you can either attend when you're 15 or when you're 12. There's some things you fill out when you get to 12, and going up, you can attend the IEP meeting. And many times the students in high school, some of them don't want to attend the meeting, and some don't know that they have. So it's for us, the parents, the case managers, the counselors, the related service providers, those who are working in the school, to let the students know that they have an IEP. And at this point, I'll ask if there are any closing words from our presenters. We are at our stop time. I do appreciate everyone for coming on. This has really been fantastic. Any other closing words, you can come on in at this time.
No, just that it was, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. McKay.
No, go ahead, Dr. Anderson. It's me.
No, I was just saying, I think this was a great start, right? A great conversation. That we have begun. I really enjoy hearing all of the questions and the different perspectives, and I'm hopeful that what was shared tonight, you feel that you're leaving with more knowledge that you entered in with, and that if you have any questions, you know that you can definitely access any one of us, and we'd be happy to share more. Because again, it was a lot of information. It can be overwhelming, but just know that you're not alone in this, and there are resources here, people here who are willing and have the desire to help.
I found lately that Dr. Anderson is a mind reader, because I was about to say the same thing. But just to add, thank you guys for spending the evening with us and listening. And again, if you need anything, we are here.
All right. Thank you all. And this ends our presentation. Thank you for joining us, and